Hello and welcome to this tutorial for Carveco Maker. My name is Leighton and I'm going to be showing you how to create some more advanced V-Bit carving. I'm going to take an image and I'm going to trace around that and then we're going to machine it. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have a few problems along the way with the image because it's quite detailed. I'll show you how you can get around that. And we're going to pretty much create our own sort of design from this. Okay, so this is the finished piece that I'm going to be producing. Right, so to start off, I'm just going to close this model and I'm going to bring in an image. And I'll show you how you can trace around the image to save a lot of work. And there are a couple of ways that you can import images. One way is to go over to Open and then just select the image. Another way is to just grab the image and drag and drop it into Carveco Maker. So if I double click on this image, this is what I have, and I'd like to trace around this. If I were to try to copy this manually, it would take me a very long time. So I'll show you how to use a tool that will automatically do this for us. So if I close that, and I'm just going to drag and drop that into Carveco Maker. Okay, so when I drag and drop it in there, it will automatically ask me to set the model size. So here you can see the height and the width. Now this is the height and the width that the image was created in. If I were to change one of these sizes, let's say if I were to make that 3000, you can see that the width also changes. That's because it's locking the aspect ratio, so it won't skew the image. Now, if I wanted to, I could do this in inches. So let's say the height of this is, let's say 3 foot, 36 inches. Okay, so you also need to set the origin. So you can set that to be the bottom left, the top left, top right, bottom right, or the center. I'm going to set it to be the bottom left. And then select OK. Now what this will do, it will place you within the 3D view. For this image, it's given me this message. So this isn't nothing to worry about. This message is just basically telling me that I can only use 2000 by 2000 pixels in Carveco Maker. But this image is quite a high resolution image. So it's just telling me that it's reduced the resolution of it just so I can use it. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Select OK. And you can see that it's opened up my image. Now it's placed me in the 3D view. Now to work on images, my personal preference is to actually use the 2D view. The reason being is that when you're looking at a top-down view within the 3D view, you get a little shiny area in the center. And I just personally would rather use the 2D view because I feel that the images just look better. So what I'm going to do is switch to the 2D view and you can make up your own mind. So there you can see the 2D view. So see how the image is a lot more crisper and I can see it a little bit better. It's just my own personal preference to use the 2D view to do this. So if we zoom in, let's say on this head here, and take a look at this. Now you can see that some of the lines here are quite jagged. So what we're going to do is to trace around these, and the tool won't follow all of these jagged areas. it will basically create a smooth transition between them. So if I zoom out, and I'll show you how to trace around this first of all. So the tool that we use to do this is called the Bitmap to Vector tool. That's located on the top toolbar here, Bitmap to Vector. So if I click on that, it opens up the Bitmap to Vector tool on the top right there. The first option in the list of this dialog is to reduce the colours. Now that's really, really important, because if you don't do that, the way that this tool works is that it needs to use one colour to trace around. Now at the moment it's using this black colour, but as you can see down the bottom there are lots of different shades of black within this image. If I click on the arrow going down, you can see I've got some greys as well, and then it's going into white. So there are actually 256 colours still within this image, even though it just looks like a black and white image. Okay, so if I were to just create the vectors now, what would happen is it wouldn't give me a very good result. So if ever you get this sort of result, then you probably haven't reduced the colours within the image. So if I zoom in on this head here, and there's a slider bar here. This is called the contrast slider bar. What this does, it basically fades out the image. So if I just left click and bring that down, and it'll slowly fade out the image. And you can see that the result isn't very good. And I wouldn't really want to use this because it wouldn't work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is delete all of those. So let me just move that over. There are quite a lot of vectors in this image, so it's slowing down my computer a little bit. So if I want to select all of these vectors really quickly, a shortcut for that is to press Control on the keyboard and then select A, and that will select everything. And then I can just press delete. Okay, so let me bring up the contrast so you can see it. So this time I'm going to do this a little bit differently. So what I'm going to do is reduce the colours. So if I select reduce colours, I'll just move this out of the way. And it says that the current number of colours in the image is 255. The new maximum number of colours is 32. So it's already brought this down to 32 colours, as you can see down the bottom. Now if I grab this and bring it further down, you can see that it's reduced it to 7 colours. Now what this is doing, it's blending colours into each other. Okay, so because this is a black and white image, I can bring this right the way down to 2 colours. So I've just got black and white. Colour images are a little different. You may need to bring colour back into it. Okay, so if I select apply, I've just got down the bottom left black and white in this image. So if I were to create the vectors now and then zoom in on the head, you can see that it gives me much better vectors. Okay, and I can machine these. Now you can also see that there are random areas where it hasn't created a vector. So maybe here, you can also see that it's created these vectors here. Now, if I did want to create vectors around any of these areas, that's all controlled by something called the Speckle Size. So if I were to undo this and then change the speckle size to 1 and then create vectors, you can see that it's now created a vector around this area here. That's because the speckle size acts as a pixel tolerance. So what this is doing is anything under 1 pixel, it won't create a vector around. So if I were to undo that and then change that to, let's say 0, create vectors, it's going to create a vector around all of the pixels. Okay, so that's how it's created the vectors around these random pixels here. Now I'm not too fussed about having vectors around these small pixels. So what I'm going to do is put it back to the default value. And then smoothness is basically how smooth that the vectors are going to be. So the lower, let's say 10%, the more angular that the vectors are going to be. So see how they're not a smooth transition. So if I undo that, and then the higher, then they will be quite smooth. Now, I'll be completely honest with you, 99% of the time I leave these as the default values, which are 2 for the speckle size and 75 for the smoothness. So I'm going to create the vectors. And you can see that I've got all of my vectors created there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just show you how to machine this. So at its most basic, this tutorial, I'm just going to show you how you can trace around an image and then machine it. I'm pretty sure that I will have a couple of problems with the vectors that this has generated because it's quite a complex drawing. Now the way that I can check that is, the quickest way is to just try to create a toolpath on there. So I'm just going to try to V-Bit carve this. So if I go over to toolpaths on the right hand side and then come down to create V-Bit Carving Toolpath, and what I'm going to do is to select a carving tool, and let's use a 1 1/4 inch 90-degree V-bit. Click select. Let's set up my material. Let's just say, for instance, this is 1 inch thick material. You would put the material Z0 at the top or the bottom, depending on how your CNC is set up. Select OK, and then select all of the vectors. So another way to do this, just draw a box around everything. Click refresh, and it's given me an error saying that vector intersections were found in the selection. It says, please identify and correct using the vector doctor. Now I'll show you how you can use this vector doctor so you can spot any problems. So let me close the V-Bit carving and we'll sort out any problems that we've got with this image. Right, so the vector doctor is next to the Bitmap to vector tool. So click on that. And don't worry about select specific vectors. This is just a selection tool. What I'm going to come down to is identify problems. Now by default, you will have both of these options ticked. So if I select identify, it will give me green and red circles wherever there's a problem. And as you can see, I've got a lot of problems here. Okay, now if I were to try to fix all of these errors that are in this drawing, then it would take me quite a long time. I'm going to show you how you can get around this and how you can fix these. Now, the coincident points are not really important for machining. So what I'm going to do is turn them off. And I'm going to clear the markers and I'm going to identify again. So that looks a bit better. So I can see here on the eye that I've got a green circle. So if I zoom in on there, what this is doing, it basically thinks that this is overlapping and it's a bit too close to the edge here. So what I'm going to do is just delete that because I don't really need it. Select all, let's clear the markers and identify it again. You can see that I've not got a problem there now. Now I know that I've got another issue, but sometimes you can't see this. So especially when it's something like this that's quite detailed. So I'll show you a little tip so you can spot any areas that have got problems. It sounds a bit counterintuitive, but zoom out. So if you keep on zooming out, you'll be able to see the circle. Okay, so that's just a little tip so you can see where it is. And then if you hover the mouse pointer over that circle and then just zoom in, you'll be able to get to the correct position. Okay, so this one is definitely overlapping and creating an intersection over that area. So if I select that and just delete it, it's not going to cause any problems by deleting it. And let's clear the markers and identify again. And that appears to be okay. So let me close the Vector Doctor and let's create the V-Bit carving again. This time it should work okay. So let's select a carving tool. Let's say 1¼ inch again, 90° V-Bit. 1 inch thick. Click refresh. And what this does, it gives you the maximum depth that this can cut so you can check prior to actually machining it. Make sure that it doesn't go through the material. Okay, so this is going 0.98 deep. So I've got 1 inch thick material. So let's calculate that. It'll take a little while because this is quite a complex group of vectors. Okay, so let's close the V-Bit carving, and all of the red areas are toolpaths. So if I open up the toolpaths on the right hand side here, you can see that I've got V-Bit carving. Now what I can do is turn off the 2D view of the toolpaths using the left light bulb. And there's also a 3D view there. So if I go into the 3D view and rotate this around, I can turn that off by selecting to toggle the 3D visibility of the toolpaths. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Let's see what this is actually going to machine like, because by just taking a look at that, I can't really tell what it's going to look like. So the way that we do that is to simulate it. So if I right click on V-Bit carving and then click to simulate toolpath, what this will do, it will give me a 3D image of what's going to be cut. Now it happens to look like this because I'm actually showing the image in the 3D view. Now sometimes you may want to do that. On this occasion, I don't really want to do that. I want to just take a look at what's actually being machined. So rather than seeing the image, because the black portions sort of take it away from where I can actually see what's going on. So here you can see I've got display bitmap. Now any icon that has a white triangle on the bottom right of the icon means that there's a flyout menu. So if you left click and hold it down, you'll get the options that lie underneath that icon. So what I need to do is display the material. So now I can see what's going on and I can rotate that around. Now, there are a couple of things that I'm not really too keen with. Now, this is how you would create a more advanced piece of V-Bit carving. But I'm not going to stop here. I'm not too happy with the way that this looks. There are a few things that I want to change. And I also want to change the center where there's this big squid or octopus. I want to get rid of that and put some text in there. So first of all, what I'm going to do is sort out the bits that I'm not too happy with. Namely, the scrolls at the top here. So you can see that this looks a bit weird here. And on the other side. And also the unicorns, the mane that's coming down the back. I'm not too happy about that. I don't think that it looks right. So I'm going to try and sort that out. Okay, so let's go back to the 2D view and take a look at this. Right, so let me turn off the 2D wireframe toolpath because I don't need to see it. And let's sort out these areas. Now, straight away, I know what's happening with the mains on the unicorn and also the scrolls. What's happening is that I've got various small vectors in there and it's going around these vectors. So what I'm going to do is just delete them. So to do that, just draw a box around them and just delete. Okay, so those are the scrolls. They should be all good now. Let's do the same with this unicorn on the right. Now you just need to get rid of the really small vectors. Okay, so that looks okay. So what I'm going to do is just double click on the V-Bit carving. All of the entities should be selected and just select to calculate now. Now it may give me an error message now because it may be able to get down a little bit deeper here because the V-bit goes down in between the vectors. So it goes down as far as it can in between a vector. So if I select refresh, it may be a little bit deeper. So it is. So it's 1.17. Okay, so this is a little bit deeper. And if I were to try to machine this now, because the thickness of the material is 1 inch, it's obviously going to go through the bed. So if I calculate that, it will give me an error message that says the toolpath will cut through the material base. Now it does give me the option to carry on with the calculation, but what I'm going to do is select no. Now the way that you can do this is to obviously make the material thicker, which I'm going to do to start with. So let's say I've got 1 1/4 inch thick material, and then in a moment I'll show you how you can limit the V-bit. So if I calculate that, it will generate the toolpath. So let's close the V-Bit Carving Toolpath and I'm going to delete the simulation. Let's go back to the 3D view and let's simulate that toolpath. Okay, so now I don't have those areas and it's going down to a full V-bit. And the same with the main on the unicorns. Now, I don't really want them to go this deep, okay? Let's say that I had half-inch material, and if they were to go this deep, then it would obviously come through the bottom of the material. So how do we sort that out? Right, so if I double click on V-Bit Carving, let's go back to the 2D view so you can see this. And let's turn that off. And rather than use 1.25 inch thick material, I'm going to set this up to be half an inch material. Select OK. Right, now this, it still wants to go 1.17 deep. So what I need to do is basically limit this to a depth. And to do that, you can limit the tool to a maximum depth at the top here. So if I click that, and let's limit it to, let's say 1/4 inch deep. So when it gets down 1/4 inch, it's just going to put a flat on the bottom. Now this still won't look correct because when it does put the flat on the bottom, it's going to try to step over. So basically it's going to go around with the tip of the V-bit and then step over or move over whatever distance is specified in the tool and then go around again. So if I click that drop down, the step over is 0.3 inches, so it's quite large. Okay, now I'm not too fussed about it. What I'm going to do is select calculate now, and I'll show you how you can get around that step over problem as well. So select calculate now, it's just generating the toolpath, and this will go nowhere near as deep. So let's delete the simulation, right click and simulate the toolpath again. Okay, so that looks okay. So it's coming down to there, and what I was talking about was here. It's stepping over by 0.3 inches. So that's what's creating this sort of jagged V zigzag sort of effect. So what we need to do for that is two options. One option is to either, if I double click on V-Bit Carving, one option is to either drop that down so the carving tool only steps over slightly, but this will take a long time to machine because you're going to have to step this over by a really minute amount in order to not get that zigzag effect. It will also have more wear on the V-bit, which costs quite a bit of money compared to normal end mills. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a roughing tool to this. So what this will do is all of this area, let's say on the main here, all of this area will be machined using the roughing tool, and then it will just go around the edge to do the V-bit carving. Save you quite a lot of time, and it will look better. So if I go to roughing tool, and let's use, let's say, 1/4 inch end mill. Click select and select calculate now. Okay, so close the V-Bit carving, and I'm just going to delete the simulation. And then let's open up the V-Bit carving. And I'm going to turn off the V-Bit, just there. So this is the 1/4 inch end mill. So you can see all of the areas where the 1/4 inch end mill is getting in to rough out some of that material. And then the V-Bit just goes round the edge. Okay, so if I were to, let's do a simulation control bar for this one, so you can see what's happening, and select play. So there you can see it's cutting out the area for the main on that right hand unicorn. Let's just fast forward that. Okay, so that's where the 1/4 inch is getting into. So now if I fast simulate the V-Bit and take a look, you can see that those scrolls look okay. Now, there is a small problem that I've got, but there's pretty much no way around this unless you use a smaller tool, which is in the corners, you've got this little area here. Now that's caused by the 1/4 inch end mill not being able to get into there because of the diameter of the tool. So the only way around that really is to use a smaller tool. Okay, so the mains, still not 100% happy with those. So I'm going to show you how you can, I basically don't want to machine all of this inside here. I don't think that it looks right. So I'm going to show you how you can limit the V-Bit. So the way that you would do that is to draw another vector that's inside here, and then the V-Bit would just go in between the two lines. So what it's trying to do at the moment is it's going in between here and here. So it's got all of this area that it can get into. So we need to limit that. So let's delete the simulation. And what I'm going to do is, you could just draw a line around here and try to copy it. One really useful thing is that we have a real-time offset. So if I go to an offset here, so offset vectors, rather than entering any distance in there or anything in there, if I hover over a vector, watch how the cursor changes from a white arrow to a black arrow. Okay, so when it's a black arrow, that means that you can grab this vector and move it and offset it in real time. So if I grab that and move it, you can see that I can just offset that vector. So let's bring it to about there, maybe. Let's say about there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is select that one and just delete it. So what this is going to do, it's going to V-Bit inside here rather than going over the whole area. Let's do the same for this one. Just delete that. I'm not going to bother for the scrolls, I think that they look okay. So let's close that. Let's double click on the V-Bit carving, and what I need to do is add these to the selection because they're new objects. So if I press Shift down on the keyboard and click on them, it will just add them. And then select Calculate now. And this should look a little bit different. Okay, so if I close the V-Bit carving and let's just right click and simulate the toolpath. Now you can see that it's limited the V-Bit to work around just the edge of the main. And I like that personally a lot better. So if I zoom out, it looks pretty good. And I could just machine this and be completely happy with this. But what I want to do is get rid of the center portion and put some text in there. So I'll show you how you can do that. So if I go to 2D view and let's turn off the toolpaths and let's zoom in on this center area. Now, if I have a look here, I can see that this is connected to the center area that I want to keep. So what I need to do is cut this up so it's not connected any longer. Now I can do that really easy by using the node editing tool. So if I go to here, it takes me into node editing. Now I have to have the object selected when I go into this tool so I can see it. So if I select that, what this does, it displays all of the points on this particular vector. So here you can see I've got quite a few points because it's quite a curvy vector. Now what you can do is just grab one of these and actually change the shape. So if there is an area that doesn't look correct or you want to change it, you can do that by using node editing. What I'm going to do is use it to cut up this portion here so it's not connected to it. So if I right click on one of these blue nodes are smooth nodes. If you see any black nodes, they're sharp nodes. Okay. So if I right click on it, I'm going to come up to cut vector. The shortcut for that, as you can see next to it, is C on the keyboard. So if I cut the vector there, you can see that it turns to this black node, and then hover over there and press C on the keyboard and it will cut up that vector. Now a couple of ways that you can get out of node editing, you can click the cross there, or you can just left click and then left click again and it takes you out of it, or you can press escape on the keyboard. If I select that now, you can see that it's not connected to this portion of the vector. So I can now delete that. I'll delete this one just so it's not shown. Now what I need to do is join this vector up. So if I select there, I'm going to come down to the bottom, and then rather than close with a line, I want to close with a curve. So if I hold the left mouse button down, come over to close vector with a curve. And then I can zoom out. And then what I'm going to do is just draw a box around here, delete that, and try to just delete all of this center portion. Okay, so that looks as though it's all deleted. And what I'm going to do is turn off the image because I don't really need to see that. Now I can do that by opening up the bitmap layers, and you can see that I've got this hand-drawn nautical elements image in there. And let's just click on the visibility, so the light bulb, and it will just turn it off. I don't need to see that anymore. Okay, so couple of things that I'm going to do now. I'm going to create some text, but I'm going to do the text on a curve. So let's draw a circle. I'm going to do this in the center here. So you can see that I'm moving around, and you see where that changes. This is what we call snapping. So it's snapping to the center. So it automatically knows that this is the center. So if I left click and then bring that out, and let's bring it out to around about there, and then just right click to accept. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create some text now. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. You can create the text and then move it so it goes around the curve. What I'm going to do is to select the curve or the circle and then go into create vector text, and it will automatically know that I want to create it around the circle. So if I type in what I want, like so. Now by default this will be set to left justify like that. So there you can see I've got this Neptunes, and I want to place that in the center up here. So to do that, what you can do is select this blue dot there and move it around. Now this blue dot will basically lock on any of the quadrants that I've got here. So you see how the cursor changes there. That means that it's locked to that point at the top. If I want to put this in the center, then what I would need to do is to click on the center there so it moves the blue dot to be in the center of the text. And then I can move that and then lock it to the top there. So this looks okay, it's just the sizing that I need to sort out. So to edit this text, what you need to do is to hover over the right hand side. You can see that I get this I symbol, left click, and then bring that all the way to the left and then release. This is all selected now. So what I can do is change the size of that. So let's just try some random sizes. Let's say 1 inch, 1 1/4. That doesn't look too bad. So what I'm going to do is go down to the on a curve, click on that, and then the position I've got that I can specify, or I can go below the line. Now when you do go below the line, you can see that it all bunches together quite a lot. So what I need to do is space this out. So that's with the spacing here. So I need to bring that up. So let's just keep on bringing that up until it looks okay. Okay, so that looks okay. I think I'm happy with that. So when you're happy with that, select create. And then you don't need to keep this circle if you don't want to. I can just delete that. Now I'm going to do some more text on a curve, but this time it's not going to be a circle. So you can do this along any curve. So to do this, I'm going to create a polyline, which is basically just a line. Now when you select this, you have the option to draw normal lines, so just straight jagged lines, or you have the option to draw smooth lines. So if I click on there, you see that I've got this S next to the cursor. You can see that it's drawing smooth lines. Now, a couple of quick tips with this. If you press S again on the keyboard, you will come out of smooth, and then you can start drawing just straight lines. Press S again and it toggles back into smooth. Now if you ever make a mistake whilst doing this, there's nothing more frustrating than copying something manually and going round the whole thing and then realising that halfway through it you made a mistake, what you can do is press minus on the keyboard and it steps back through these points that you've created, and then you can carry on. Okay, so just a few tips. Now also, if you right click and create the vector, you have to go back into the tool if you wanted to draw another line. I'll show you another way that you can keep the tool open. So if you start drawing some lines and then you wanted to create another line, rather than just create and then close and then you need to go back into the tool, press space on the keyboard and it allows you to keep the tool open. Okay, so just a few tips using the Polyline tool there. So let's delete those, and then I'm going to draw maybe from there up to there. And what you can do with this is if you go into node editing, you see how this is going quite straight at the moment. So I want to curve it round a little bit. So if I go into node editing, see how I've got these white sort of handles there? These control the Bezier curves, so the curvature of this line. So if I grab that, I can move it down. Give it more of a nice curvature. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing again over this area. So select the curve and create vector text. And then I'm going to type in retreat like so, and let's move that so it snaps onto the center. Now with this one, I want this to be above the line, so let's select position above line. Now that doesn't look too bad, to be completely fair. What I'm going to do is just select all of that and maybe drop the spacing down just a little bit. And I may just make that a little bit smaller and select create. And then I can delete that line. And then finally, what I'm going to do is just select this trident here. And I'm going to copy it into the center. So what I'm going to do is just literally draw a box around that. And it selects all of that. Now, if you happen to select something else, just press shift on the keyboard and then left click to deselect it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is to copy this. So if I move over like so, just select it again, and if I hover over it, I can actually move that around if I left click. And what I'm going to do is press Control down whilst doing this, and I'm just going to drop it anywhere. Okay, so that's created a copy. Now what I can do is center that in the model. So to do that, shortcut for it is F9. I'm just going to go to Vector and Align and center that in the model. Now you can see that it's too large and I need to make it a bit smaller. So that's really easy to do. What we do with the trident still selected is go to Transform, and then you can enter a size here and maintain the aspect ratio. It's entirely up to you, but what I'm going to do is just grab one of the diagonal red dots and then just move that down. Now you can see that it's moving it down to the anchor points of the bottom left hand corner. If it does that, press Alt on the keyboard and it will do it from the center. So I'm going to bring that down to there. Now you can see that it's still touching there, so I'm just going to use the arrow keys and move that up. So about there. That looks okay, so I'm going to run my V-Bit Carving again. So double click, you can see that it's not selected any of this. So let's press Control A to select everything and then calculate. Okay, so let's close the V-Bit Carving. I'll delete the simulation and then right click and let's simulate again. And let's see the final piece. Okay, so that looks quite good. It's carved all of those text there. What I can do now is to change the colour of this if I wanted to. So let's go to simulation. Let's add a depth colour. Select apply, so it's black. If I wanted to add another colour, change the colour of this, just right click here and add colours. Let's say that I wanted to add maybe more of a tan sort of colour and then select OK. It changes the colour there. Let's change the material. So let's make this, let's say light oak. Let's see what that looks like. And we could go back to black if we wanted to, like so. And that's how we create more advanced V-Bit carving, how to generate really quickly tracings around images and then just carve them using a V-Bit. Right, so the only thing left to do is to send this to the CNC machine. So to do that, what you need to do is go to Toolpaths and then go to Save Toolpaths. And what this will do, it will take you to the Save Toolpaths dialog box. Now, because I've got two different tools, I probably want to do these as two different files so I can send them to the machine separately. Unless I've got a tool changer where I can do them at the same time. Just make sure that I've got the tool number that corresponds to the carousel. If I didn't have a tool changer, let's just save these toolpaths to separate files. I'm also going to append the toolpath details to the file names. And then I'm going to browse. I'm going to find the file for that. Let's call it Neptunes. Select open. And then the machine file format is what we call post-processors. So these are basically converters that will convert the information or the toolpaths from Carveco Maker into a format that your CNC machine will understand. Now there are literally hundreds in this list, so you're more than likely going to find your CNC listed on here. If you have an imported machine, more than likely be using G-code ARCs, so I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to select to save, and that saves the files into that location that I specified, which should be down here. And then what I can do is if you right click and select open with, and then just associate it with WordPad, because all that it is just literally commands and coordinates which tell your machine what to do. So send this to your machine however you do it, and then you'll be able to machine whatever's been output from Carveco Maker. So thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope that you found it useful, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers, take care, and goodbye.